proceed without?
It's okay, we'll proceed without it. It's okay.
Well, that was one of the situations where they've already gone all this trouble.
Yeah.
What do you want to do when you give them stuff on the letters? It's up to you. I don't care. Here's the man.
It was just an output from here. So we're just hooking up some sound, and if you bear with us for a sec. A multimedia experience.
All this just for a gag.
Yeah.
So
I didn't know it was going to be so much trouble.
Here today.
We came up with a little idea. We're just going to start off with a
Little thing.
cool little thing, but we didn't realize we were going to give so much effort to everybody else to set up. So if you just bear with us for a couple of minutes, and we'll get going.
Well, the AV company's really amazing.
Yeah.
They're going above and beyond.
Because everything's being recorded here, isn't it?
We're being recorded.
Everything that's coming out from that screen.
The AV company's just gone above and beyond Call of Duty. They are tremendous. Everyone's blogging anyway, so don't worry about it.
Yeah. So I'm here in the session and nothing's happening. There's no announcements. So I want to see how long I can stretch this out. So you just have. You have 3 oranges? I'll keep you interested. Actually, I shouldn't say that because I know for a fact there's oranges outside and you'll ask me to do it. You can read.
What are your plans for CF8?
CF8. I'm going to use it. I've got.
As far as CFEclipse goes.
That's slide number 23. The thing is, if I tell you now, what am I going to tell you later? I'm going to be off my stride and go, but I already told you that. So just before I get started, just quickly, how many people actually use CFEclipse? Damn. Okay, how many people don't use CFEclipse? Now keep your hands up in the air. Hold on a second. And August. Okay. See, but I'm going to come back next year and I'm going to go through the pictures going, are you using it? It's the BOM, isn't it? Sorry? It was a kind of prerequisite, but I'm changing and it'll be more freeform. So I should have sound from this, right?
Hi, I'm Dreamweaver.
And I'm Eclipse. What's up, Eclipse?
Well, it's the weekend and I gotta work.
How come?
Oh, because we blew the build on Friday and we have to ship on Wednesday. Now we're screwed. We gotta bring in some consultants on Monday, get the management team to look it over.
What does the management team have to do anything with it?
They have to buy more licenses of me. Hello?
Oh, can't Homeside help you out?
You know, he hasn't talked to me since yesterday afternoon. I think you upset him yesterday.
I just want a big round of applause to the AV team who did all that effort just for that. Okay, now welcome, I'm going to get started. And to answer someone's question that I have a remote control that doesn't work from this angle. Who am I? I'm a CFEclipse's lead developer. I'm a Cold Fusion and obviously CFEclipse evangelist. In other words, I go around talking to people to use Cold Fusion and CFEclipse. I'm also the UK Cold Fusion user group manager, which comes in handy when you're forcing people to do things. And I'm a product manager at Design UK, so I did a lot of Core Fusion development, Java development. We do a marketing suite based on Core Fusion, Java, and various other technologies. I've also been a Core Fusion developer for about 11 years, and I think that's wrong. It's probably about 12 years now, longer than I can really count. And I drink Jack Daniels, so when the bar opens, you know what to get me. So what is CFEclipse? If you don't know, I mean, most of you are using it, so this is a really pointless slide. It's an integrated development environment for Core Fusion, and it's not an editor. The whole idea is based around projects, so you have a project. So it's very good if you're developing a project rather than just doing maintenance. It supports various versions of CFML, Core Fusion, Blue Dragon, and Raylo, who Gert Franz from Raylo is here, all the way from Switzerland. It's a free plugin for a free platform, the platform being Eclipse, which is a platform for building IDEs and various different tools, including email clients or anything else. It's just, it provides you a generic toolkit for building stuff. It's more well known for Java, and it's also open source. It was owned by IBM, they open sourced it, which means that there's lots of people developing for it, and loads of plugins that are available for it, such as Aptana, which is a HTML and JavaScript editor. You've got Fusion Debug, which is a debugging tool for Core Fusion 7, 6, etc. Flex Builder, which you might have heard of, Subversion, and already comes built into it, Oxygen editors, etc. There's loads of millions of plugins for Eclipse to help you do various different things. And why is it good that it's open source is that anyone can contribute to it. People can build plugins, they can release them, and most of all, it's free. Just to give you a little bit of history, it was started up in 2003 by a guy called Rob Rohan to fill a niche that there wasn't a free Core Fusion editor out there. There was loads of text editors, but there wasn't really a good environment to start up a project to really develop Core Fusion sites. And later on that year, Oliver Tutman and Spike Milligan, not the comedian, another guy called Spike Milligan joined the project. And someone called Mark Drew and Nathan Strutz joined later on. I joined in because I wanted to have some help integrated into CFEclipse, because I started using it, didn't have an IDE, started using it, and it was the DIY attitude, you know. You want it in the tool, build it yourself. So I went, all right. In 2005, Macromedia endorsed the project, and they said they provided us help in the way of Sean Caulfield, hosting, and various other side help. And then, mysteriously enough, in 2005, Macromedia, who'd been bought by Adobe, joined the Eclipse Foundation itself and started contributing to the Eclipse Foundation. So, see, anyone can contribute to it, including companies. And mysteriously enough, after they joined the Eclipse Foundation in 2006, Flex Builder was built on Eclipse instead of Dreamweaver. It was a much better platform for building tools. In 2006, again, the RDS plugin for Eclipse and the Core Fusion plugins for Eclipse started being released by Adobe, so they're really behind it and supporting it. And in 2007, we finally released CFEclipse 1.3 after 4 years. So where does CFEclipse and Eclipse fit in the developers? This is from experience of people I've interviewed and the development practice that people do. People that are using Dreamweaver, who helped me out, thank you Dreamweaver, actually go from 0 to hero very quickly using Dreamweaver. I know a little bit of HTML. Can you hook it up to my database? Bang. They've got a website going. It's great. Is it maintainable? Maybe not. Maintainable by one person, maybe. But you can get to hero very quickly. Then they go, well, it's my friend Homesite that ships with Dreamweaver. And they start developing, and they really stay at that level. They can do very advanced applications and stuff like that, but they're not really using the rest of the ecology of tasks that you can do with it. Once you start moving on to Eclipse and CFEclipse, you start doing slightly different things. These different things being test-driven development. You've got automated Ant build scripts. You start using version control. You start getting these ideas about proper development lifecycle. Just because a tool is kind of forcing you kind of that path and is making those things available to you. So you don't have to get extra tools. It becomes part of your daily routine in development. So to get started with Eclipse, does everybody know this? Say yes, Mark, or no, Mark. If you say no, I'll talk about it. But basically, it's an application. You download it, you unzip it. I'm going to show you that in a sec. And you can actually, it's basically a layout which is very similar to a lot of people, but the terminology is slightly different. Workbench means the actual application. You can have multiple applications open at the same time. The workspace is actually where you store your settings, and by default, asks you to create projects there. You don't have to. You've got views, which are basically little windows within your workbench, and perspectives, which groups all your windows into a layout that is useful for the task that you're doing. And everything is based around projects, so they're based locally. So that's the first step that's forcing you to develop things properly, because you've got ColdFusion Server on your machine. You're developing, not influencing other people. And now having it on your machine means that you're checking into version control, so you can check it out onto your development server, which I'm sure everyone here is doing, right? Right. So a lot of features that come part of Eclipse, which are not things that we put in the CFEclipse plugin, which is a plugin for Eclipse, are things like it's cross-platform, which is very important. How many people use Macs here? How many people use Linux here? Don't have to put your hand up. Or PCs, you know? I can go into a PC and a Mac, and I'm using the same tool. I can't do that for home site. Out of the box, you can do Java editing. ColdFusion's built on Java. If you're not using Java yet, you should start using it, because it's very useful to get really under the hood. To do, you can create your own beans, for example, and it's about 10 times faster than ColdFusion creating its own CFCs. You start looking into developing Java, you've got the tool there ready. It comes with version control. CVS, already built in the box. You don't have to install anything from the outside. You don't have to do anything else. It's got a, what is it? Ant task runner. Sorry, I should read my own screen. It's got an Ant task runner. So how many people here don't know what Ant is? Okay, Ant is basically a kind of scripting language built in XML that allows you to do various tasks. These tasks would be copy some files over here, check them in, check them out, make a zip, FTP it, email someone that you've FTP it. You can make atomic tasks that depend on each other. So first off, you do this, then you do this. And you can have different targets. So you can do, check out my project and zip it up so I can email it to somebody. Check out my project and deploy it to my staging server. You can build these very big tasks that save you what you're doing every day, save you time. And that's already built in. It comes with a generic text editor, which is pretty handy, you know. So you don't have to put anything in. If it doesn't know how to edit a file, you'll use a text editor. It comes with a web browser, it comes with search. It comes with a lot of features already built in the box. And on top of that, you can get CFEclipse for it. And it comes with a nice, Eclipse itself comes with a nice feature, which is an automatic update. So you can get software updates. You can install plugins without even going to the website and downloading and unzipping and dragging and dropping. You just go into help, software updates, get a new site, here's a URL, here's a software you can install. Much easier. So, talking about CFEclipse, there's some current features, which we have tag completion. You'd expect that in an editor. Syntax highlighting. You don't want all your code in black and white, unless you are weird. You've got content outline, which shows you all your ColdFusion code, because that's what we're concerned about CFEclipse. It's ColdFusion code. The next one is methods view. If you're using a CFC, you want to see what functions. There might be private, public, remote, or package, or whatever. You can see all those functions and cruise to them and just double-click and go straight to them pretty quickly. Web-based help if you haven't got the Eclipse plugins from Adobe. And if you do, it will use the help that's included in that. Snippets, which I will show today, are very useful functionality to put code, but it's not just copy and pasting code. They go much beyond that. You've got a file explorer, so if you are hankering after home site and missing it, you can actually browse files anywhere in your file system, anywhere on an FTP file system, and get them immediately. You've got a methods view, which I've already said, so I'm repeating myself, but I like it. Okay, we've got a methods view. You can browse stuff. We've got a scribble pad, which I'll show you how to set up, which means that when you're coding, sometimes in a project, who's got a test.cfm file somewhere that you're just testing stuff? You've all blank.cfm, which is where you just put some code that you're going to quickly test. We've got a scribble pad that's got some nifty features. We've got a dictionary view. Now, as I said before, we support loads of languages. We support CoreFusion 5, 6, 7, 8, Raylo, Blue Dragon, 2 versions of Blue Dragon. And if you have new tags, I should be adding them in, shouldn't I, Gert? It's also got toolbars just like HomeSite, which are useful for about 30 seconds. We've got a component explorer, so you can browse your components. You've got variable insights to a level. So if you create a query, the query name is there available in your syntax highlight. We've got syntax checking to tell you that what you're coding is wrong. Okay, so let's have a look at some of these features. Well, before I start the demo, I wanted to make it a bit freeform because there's a lot of people that actually use it today. And if you've got some questions, do it whilst I'm doing it rather than right at the end. Don't be shy, okay? So having a quick look at, this is Eclipse started up. And I just realized a lot of it's cutting off. Tell me if it's cutting off. So what we have is here's the workbench in the perspective of CFEclipse. Perspectives are arrangement of windows. So I have a whole bunch of views that are useful for my development. So for example, I've got the navigator with all my little projects there. I've got my snip tree view. I've got my file explorer over here, so this is browsing various things. On the other side, I've got my Outlook pane, my outline pane, my methods view, and my dictionary. There's some other views, but I've got tasks. You can insert tasks automatically. It will show you some problems on the current file. You can create bookmarks. And in fact, you've got a browser view. So that's with the layout. So if we now look at how you create projects in CFEclipse, if I press new, I can do CFML. I can create a new CFML project. And because I said that my workspace was actually located in here, uses Mark II Documents Runtime CFEclipse 3.3, that's where it will default to. But you're not fixed with that. I can create a new project called CF United. And I'm not going to use a default location. I'm going to browse, and because I've got a DVD in, it's going to be. I go to where I keep my documents, my web documents, and create it. And now I've got my CF United project. I can then create a new CFML page or a new CFC. And type hello world. Oh, this is so exciting. How many hello worlds have you seen at this conference? The other thing, what you can do, which is a new feature of CFEclipse, you can just right click and say edit the URL for that. So I'm hoping that this is going to work. I don't know if I've got CoreFusion started up. So now what you can do is actually just click the browse there, and then I've got a browser view just at the bottom. I haven't had to go anywhere. Shout out if you're all the way at the back. I might not see you. What browser is that? This is going to be based on whichever the default web browser for your operating system is. Not like the default that you've chosen, but the default one. So for example, on Apple, it's going to be Safari. It's going to be using the WebKit rendering engine. On a PC, on Windows, for some reason, it might be Internet Explorer. The other way that you can browse to things, and obviously because that's a good question, thank you for reminding me, you might want to browse this with something else. So we've got another little planet here with a 1 on it, and when I click on it, it's going to start up Firefox. I have another one here, number 2, so I've got 2 browsers I can start up, and it appears in Safari. Yes? They came with it. You have to be in the CFEclipse perspective and open up a CFML page. Yeah. The interface of Eclipse might be a bit confusing because toolbars change depending what kind of file you're editing. So in Java, I really don't want to be looking at, inserting comments like that. You know, I wouldn't want to do that in Java, so it's kind of depends on the context. Yeah.
There's no doc type or HTML body, whatever. So I guess I'm wondering if that can cause problems. I know in 3.3 you have that option of having your default have all that.
Okay, I'll show that in a second. That's part of my snippets experience, which I'm going to do next, just because you asked. So, in answer to your question, the problem is, who am I as a developer that's developing CFEclipse to tell you what your default documents are going to be like? Sorry, I don't have the right to do that. So, what we've done is integrated a couple of things. So, for example, I'm going to do a default page, which is going to be bongly. Oops. I found a bug, and I was going to do an announcement, but I did it yesterday. I'm actually running on Eclipse 3.3, and I found a bug with Eclipse 3.3. If I select all and then try and type, it gets its knickers in a twist. So I'll have to raise that with them rather than with myself. But anyway, I've got a document, and it's going to be HTML. I'm really terrible at coding and typing in public, so please don't laugh. So this is a very basic HTML document. I might want to put a title there. So what I can do is actually copy that, and in my snippets, here you got different directories of snippets. I can create a new folder, and I'm going to call that HTML. And in that, create a new snippet called HTML simple. The next is a trigger text. Now, in Homesite and in a lot of other tools, you can define your own shortcut for things. Control-1, Control-2, Control-Alt-Shift-3, Control, and all of that. I have a terrible memory, so what's easier to do is actually define a trigger text, which is a word. So, HTML. I'm going to paste that in there. And if I go to the bottom, and that's a start block. This is the end block. And there's a tick box there. Use this snippet as a file template. So I can tick that and click OK. So now if I delete this and say that this is going to be my blank file, what I can do is either double-click this and it'll insert the whole body, or, because I don't want to be opening up that view and doing various other things, I could be working in full screen, for example, I can just type HTML. I promise not to swear, HTML, and it inserts my snippet for me. Now snippets, that's kind of useful, isn't it? Say yes, Mark. Thank you. So now I want to create another file. What you can do is actually new file from a template. So I can do untitled, and I can do my HTML template. Click that, and now I've got my HTML template. So that's how you can have your doc type stuff. You may clap if you want to. Okay. Now the next part, of course, this snippet. It's kind of useful. My whole site, I don't want it to have untitled on top of it. So what you can do is do snippet variables, which start with a $, curly brace, curly brace. So $, curly brace, and I can type the name of the variable. So if I copy that and go to my snippets and edit my snippet and change this top part for having that variable there, $, title. It now prompts me for a title. I can go, hello. So now, and this works the same way now because that's a template, file from template. I'm going to use HTML template. I'm going to say untitled 2. So there we go, it's Mark's wonderful page. Sorry? Well, you type the trigger text, and then on Windows it's Control J, and on Apple it's Apple J. Something. But it doesn't end there. Snippet's actually a lot more useful. So if I now go back and edit my snippet, I think I had it in my clipboard. I can put title, and I've got two titles. One's Untitled and one's New Page, as an example. You can put colon, New Page, and use the pipe symbol to delimit it. So what I can now do is edit this again, paste that in there. Now I have a drop down, select New Page, Untitled. All. So that's very handy. I mean, not just for this. I personally have things that are getters and setters. So, for example, I just put GNS, Apple J, and it generates getters and setters for all my stuff in CFCs. Another thing that I'm going to jump around a little bit that we've announced. Actually, I'll leave that for a minute because it's a little bit more complicated, and I've got writing on the ball to set. Were you here in yesterday's presentation? Okay. Who was here yesterday's presentation? You're just crazy. Yeah. Yeah, well, they've always been able to. They're only saved on file. I'll just show you that. If you, yep, you can actually drop in your Dreamweaver ones. I'll show you something that will help you share with your colleagues. But if you just want to do it, you can go Window, well, in Eclipse Preferences. It's Window Preferences in Eclipse 3.2. Go to CFEclipse, and path of snippets directory is there. And if you open that up, you'll actually have, oops. That's the wrong path, I didn't copy it. There you go, here's all your snippets, so you can share them. Going on to the next view, we've got the File Explorer view, as I mentioned before, which is for you that like the home site retro feel and you just want to browse your local machine. You can go to your local file system and browse your local file system and open up stuff. That's okay in my opinion, but it's just okay because it's going to, on Windows, it will show you all your drives. On my machine, it shows me the root of my machine, and that's not what I keep my HTML documents. That's what I'm not interested in. So we have this thing called locations. On the little right arrow pointing there, you can select a location. For example, I've got a location there defined called the web root. The connection type for it is file, because it's just a file location. I can select the path, and if I now go to my web root, it goes straight to where I keep my documents. So, for example, I go there, and it just opens stuff up. But that's not all. You can add other locations, as you can see here, that are FTP, for example. And not just FTP, you can do SFFTP. So you just define those. I go to my local machine, and now I'm connecting to my own machine via FTP. Pretty handy, right? Because, well, the idea is, as I mentioned earlier, you have two types of development patterns. One is that you're developing a new project on your local machine and you're testing, unit testing, you're checking in, right? And the other one is you have to do maintenance on a remote web server, you have to do some changes. I do this all the time. I've got a project that I'm working on, it's on my local machine, etc. But I want to change something on my blog. That doesn't need to be really version controlled, it's not mission critical. So I just use this to connect to my blog. Okay. How are we doing for time? We've got about half an hour. Before I go back to the presentation, is there anything that you want me to show you specifically? Yes?
Always edit the toolbar where if you want to, you know how when you just hit the pound signs, it puts 2 pound signs around the variable. Is there any way to edit it where you put single quote and pound sign around the variable?
Not the toolbar itself, but that's what snippets are for. They'll fall under the snippet remit, really. Unfortunately, there's no really easy way. I mean, it's not because I'm being mean and not giving it to you. It is because of the way that those tools, that those icons are actually added in Eclipse itself as part of the plugin. So it's pretty hard, well, for most people to do it. But yeah. Sure. So, for example, I've got this project, and I'm not the greatest at writing AND scripts. I've got people that do it for me. Actually, his name's Andy, and I go, Andy, I need an AND script that does this. But anyway. AND scripts are called build.xml. And now that I create it, it will automatically go into the into the AND editor. Now, if you press, I think, Control space, I think it's on Windows, you get a build file template. So you can add a comment or a project or whatever. Here's a template, which is going to be quite handy. So I can just type Control space. So I'm not actually going to run an AND task. I'll show you what the outline is. I don't know. Since you asked, I'm going to come and show you. The first part is a project, which has got a name and a default. There's a default target. You've got targets that you're trying to get to. So that's your endpoint. Each target can do a whole bunch of functions within it. So for instance, you can have a AND copy. I'll show you some of the kind of AND tasks that appear there. So for example, my default target is default, but then you see it depends on this target called depends. So this could be, the name of this could be final build. So you'd say that your default target is final build, depends on copy files. So then you have copy files. So this AND task could be something like, just trying to find it. Copy dir, copy file. So copy this directory. It's very much like Core Fusion. All the AND tasks are just XML based. So copy from destination and from source. As an example, so you'd be copying all your local project up to somewhere you might want to do some replacements in it. Now, to actually run that, I'm going to do something that is not as bad. I can do echo the usual hello world. So now that I'm in this view, I can see that here's my ANT build, and this is the final build. Is the final part of the process. I can run as ANT build. And it's just starting up. I'm actually running a debug version of CFEclipse, but there you go. My AND task is run, and you can see that it says the copy files target has said hello world. This will do a lot of stuff. It was geared towards Java, but it's very handy to do loads of stuff. You could check in your whole project. You could just pass it a variable saying this is what I need to do. Okay? No. I've just written a build file and run it. You've seen the configuration. Any other questions? Yeah.
Can you show me where the setting is so you can target or
Sure. One of the things that you have to do, and you right-click on actually, I'm doing all shortcuts, and you're going, magic window appearing. You just right-click on a project, do properties. You got CFEclipse properties, and there's a different language versions, okay? You might have to close and open up the editors again to get it actually doing it. Because each time an editor opens up, it goes, I like that dictionary. You know? Yes? So it's not really for a project, and then change it for all projects? No, just change it for that project. It's per project. Because in theory, you wouldn't have 15 different files in one project that are geared towards different servers. You'd have not the whole editor, just a file, whichever file you're editing. Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah.
Or does CFA pop up after you install the CFA dictionary?
Yeah. There's instructions on my blog on how to download the file and stuff like that. Any other questions? Yeah.
When you change file names, the perspective doesn't change. You have to manually change the perspective.
Yeah. Because the perspective is you in the process of doing something, right? So I'm in the process of editing a website. If I wanted to change the perspective to, let's say, CVS repository browsing, I'm actually doing something else. I'm browsing a repository rather than writing a website in right. But what you can do, I mean, it doesn't really matter because if you're going backwards and forwards between Cold Fusion and Flex, it's like you're only going to another file. So the whole perspective doesn't change. One of the nice things about perspectives is that maybe you think that I'm really badly dressed and the way I do things have got no style and this perspective is not really your cup of tea. What you can do is actually rearrange the perspective. Like for example, I like my outline view here because that's how Flex Builder has it. And I actually want my bookmarks appearing up here on the right. And you think that the way I've done it is wrong. You can do that, and then you just go Window, Save Perspective As, and you've got your own perspective. So you've changed it, and then you can go, I want to open a different perspective. I've got the CFEclipse one, or I've got the Mark D one, which is displaced like that. So you can create your own perspectives depending how it suits you. Yeah? Sorry? Sure. CVS is built in, and SVN I think might be built in. But for example, if I open up a perspective, I mean, you can kind of see it in one of my projects there, but you got SVN repository exploring because I've got the SubClipse plugin, but they work nearly identical. So if I go to, let's go to the SVN because I don't use. So there we go. Here's some projects. Now close your eyes, please. You can't see my password. I probably haven't remembered my password. The connection here is pretty slow. So, but there you go. That's the website. That's how I'm browsing a repository, and what I can do from this repository is actually check it out. Now, I've already done that. So my CFEclipse project here is already in there. So what I can do is team, synchronize with the repository, commit, do your normal team-based tasks. I won't do it because it's going to be really slow over the internet connection. But what happens is that you then it goes into another perspective. Or I mean, I'll try and do it. Yeah, sure. It's now asked me if I want to go into the synchronization view, and it'll then compare it. So I go, yeah. And then it shows me the files that I've got to check in or check out. Okay? Any other questions before I move on? On an Apple, it's Control F8. Or an Apple F8. All right? So we've added a lot of new features. I'm not going to demonstrate this today, but we added a soft launch of something called a CF Unit plugin. A guy called Robert Blackburn built it because he runs a CF Unit project. And what it is a view that allows you to run unit tests, and you've got a helper to create unit tests for your CFCs. So it'll introspect a CFC, say, do you want to run unit tests for all these methods? I'm not going to show it today because this subject is actually very big, and I've only got 15 minutes. I'm going to now start talking very quickly. Supports both CF Unit and CFC Unit, which are the two unit testing frameworks. And Sean Corfu released something called a CFC Unit Facade that you just have to drop. It's a CFM or CFC file that you drop into your web root, which means that from CFEclipse, you can run your unit tests without having to go to a browser or do anything else like that. It'll just show you the tests that you've passed and failed. We've also released something called a CF Frameworks Explorer. It's a plugin for CFEclipse. It supports all the frameworks that are configured by XML. It's very configurable. You can add your own frameworks if you like. You can define your own frameworks. You can add actions and actually say what you want it to look like. You'll say, oh, that's very nice, but I've got my own framework. Does it support that one? And it's yes, it supports most frameworks. It supports Fusebox, Mac2, and I know I've got the wrong logo there, Matt. I was going to change it, but they didn't get me the email in time. Reactor, Transfer, Cold Spring, out of the box, and any framework that's based on XML. So I'm going to quickly show you. It's actually very easy to show. Sorry? Well, then I'm not going to support it. I did say it's for XML based. If you're not going to be XML based, can't help you. So for example, CFEclipse.org, the website, which this version is not going to ever get checked in because I've been demoing on this code for the last 3 months, so everything's wrong on it. But if I open up a file, and I open up the Frameworks Explorer, it appears down here at the bottom. This is a bug with Eclipse, but you can just drag it to the side. And by magic, it has figured out that I'm running Cold Spring, Model Glue, and Reactor. So I don't have to open up the XML files themselves and figure out what's going on. I can actually just expand this and say, well, here's my Cold Spring. Here are all my beans. Here's Model Glue, my controllers. I've only got one controller, very lazy of me. And here are all the event handlers. And here's my Reactor framework. And here are all the objects. What's handy is that if I, for example, want to go and have a look at which broadcasts, any one of these that actually does any broadcast, which is probably index, is doing, I can just double click on it and it'll open up straight in there. And you say, well, that's good for Model Glue. I might use it, might not use Model Glue, but here we go. Here's a Fusebox that still uses XML project. And here we go. You've got the Fusebox with your circuits, all the circuits underneath here. And double click on it, and I can go to the definition of it. And just for Matt, because I know he's sitting in the back, here's a Mac2 project with all the listeners that I can go into. That's okay, isn't it? That helps, right? Now, for example, if I, let me just, if I just open up CFEclipse, for example, the website. If I've got event handlers, what I would like to do a lot of the time, instead of copy and pasting, I want to create a new event handler. I don't want to copy and paste the XML and actually open the file because I'm actually looking at a controller. I just want to add a new event and get on with it. So what I can do is click Add an Event Handler, add a new name. You create it, and if you now go back to your event handlers, you see that Bob was here. The event handler has been created for you. You can actually configure this. I'm not going to show it now because yesterday it's just a big XML file and it's very easy to get your head around. Now, for example, I can add a new message. And look, it's already figured out the messages that I'm listening to in my framework. So I can say, when I broadcast a message, I want set value. I want to broadcast that message. Now, for example, anyone use Reactor here? Okay, now, for example, what I can do is say add an object, name of the database table. Now, if I go back, and let's say I'll open up the Reactor file, you can see that Bob's table has been added, just like that. That's kind of clever. No, wait, let me show you the clever bit. So now can it say Bob's table has many, hey, users. So now it actually introspects everything and finds out where things are. Apart from that, let's delete Bob's table, because when I start up Reactor on CFEclipse, if you come to the website and go, object not found, Bob's table, if I open up a test file. Now, one of the things that I do in Model Glue quite a lot is going to be calling the bean handler, get Model Glue, get bean, and stuff like that all the time. So what I can do is right-click on this and say insert generic bean, and go, what's the bean name? Bob. Bean handler is going to be application.coldspring, and it actually inserts it for me in my file. I can do other things like, I'm just trying to remember other functions. I can then insert add message listener for it, for example. Oh, sorry. I did promise to show insert Model Glue bean name Bob. And you insert it into the middle of your code, because that's precisely where things have to go. So it does get Model Glue, get bean. If you're in a controller, you'll be doing this a lot of the time. So it speeds up a lot of stuff. You can define your own functions and stuff like that. Hit me up later, and I've blogged about how to do this, but I'll be showing how to do this, to add your own functionality. Any questions on that? No, you're stunned into silence. So now it's up to you. You can create the actions. You can add your own frameworks. It's very easy. For example, this is at CF Objective. I was about to present this. I had about 5 minutes to go, and I hadn't added transfer to. And I sat down with Mark Mandel. In 5 minutes, I added transfer as a framework, and the thing that really took the time was finding the right icons. So it takes 5 minutes. It's really easy. And you don't have to use Java. It's just XML configuration files. Pretty easy. One more thing. We've released something called SnipEx, well, we announced yesterday, and because the connection here is so terrible, we haven't actually released it. There's something called Snippet Exchange. Snippets are great, but you want to share them. Someone just mentioned, I want to share these snippets. Where are they? They're here, right? So what we've done is created a client-server solution. CFEclipse is a client, and two CFCs, very simple CFCs, are the actual server. You install it on your own Core Fusion server, point it at whatever it actually runs off a MySQL database, but the queries are very, very simple. It's just a listing of libraries and a listing of snippets, and you can consume them. So you got an application.cfc that has settings where the people can submit to it, what the initial library is, what the name of it is. SnipEx.cfc provides an XML that CFEclipse consume. It's stored in a MySQL database. They're very simple. Ray, Camden, and I created one for cflib.org fairly quickly, because all you have to do is a query that returns the right column names, and it'll do it. Because it's in CFML, you can create your own workflows. You can say who can submit it, who can do it, so you can all publish different SnipEx services. The Snipex Client is CFEclipse's snippet view. You could actually see it when I was demonstrating the snippets. You might have wondered what that was. Caches the snippets, so you don't have to be always connected. Any snippets you've already used will be cached for a long while, for about a week, I think it is, unless you refresh it. And let's have a look at this. This is such a simple concept. It just takes a few seconds to look at it. So now here on this drop-down, you can edit SnipEx servers. I've decided to give you 8. Random number that I chose out of a hat, because it's just simple. I'm now connected to a SnipEx server on my own machine. And here we go. CFEclipse is snippets. I've got some CSS snippets. It shows you some shortcuts for them. So if I now just click that, inserts a text file. For example, CFCs. I want to do a CF property. And it creates that. So you can create your own SnipEx servers. You use ours, use CFLib. There'll be more popping up over the next few weeks once the source code is released. Really easy. Just add it in there and refresh. Any questions? Yeah.
Those don't write the file on the local machine?
They do. They're XML. Behind the scenes. In the same place where your snippets are stored, you'll also see a directory called SnipEx, and for each server. Any other questions? Cool. And finally, CFEclipse is compatible with Eclipse 3.3, which was released yesterday. Thanks to Dean Harmon. If he was here, we should give him an applause because he worked very hard here at CF United to get it all done. And this whole presentation actually was done using Eclipse 3.3, released yesterday, so you can't say that I slacked. Thank you. There's some links and resources for your questions, insults, throw tomatoes at me. Yeah.
I looked at this briefly a year ago, and I'd rather go back and read what we discussed if we had a better visual sources, what else we can use. What kind of visual sources what do you have now?
I've used it with Visual Source Safe for 2 years. Not recently because I think it's the suckiest version control system I've ever encountered. But there is a client VSS Eclipse or something like that, which actually is just an interface into your. You have to have Visual Source Safe actually installed on your machine, and it's just a kind of interface in that it runs it on the command line in the background, and I use that. So, but Visual Source Safe pretty much sucks. So unless it's a Microsoft product, it's not going to do. Any other questions? Cool, you can go. Thank you.